Hello and welcome to Conversations with Sara. This is episode 3 and I think I'll title it, So You Want to Be a Traveling Interim Leader. I know that there are some of you, there's a few people that I've met who consider interim leadership as a pathway to permanent. And if you think about it, that's really a clever way to do it. You want to determine if that's the right fit, the health system, and also the location. 2 days of interviews and only hearing the highlights doesn't really fill you in for what a place is all about. So I can certainly understand and think it's very clever to use interim leadership as a way to find your permanent home. But for me and for others like me, this is our job. This is what we like to do. We're not looking for a permanent home, and we're not looking for that type of transition. I will start this conversation by telling you the reasons why I love interim leadership. Then we'll move on to some of the things for you to consider if you want to make this a choice. Then we can talk about some practical tips and some general advice. As always, if you have comments, if you have further questions, please leave them here in the comment section below this video or on the group conversation. Now, to begin with why I personally love being an interim, it's just been the right time for me in my life. I couldn't have done this 10 or 15 years ago, absolutely not. But now I can. And I have always been a person who is filled with wanderlust, who wants to see what's over the next horizon, who wants to explore as much as I possibly can. So doing this as an interim, I have the best of both worlds. I have a stable home and a place that I can go to when I'm not working. Then I can have all of my adventures through work. So it gives me an opportunity to see places in this country that I normally wouldn't have seen, that I wouldn't have chosen to see on vacation, or wouldn't have had time to see as in-depth as I do. I get to explore culture. Because I am wide open in where I want to work, I get to see, experience foods and different expressions and just cultures all across the country, which to me I find fascinating. There's the element of getting to meet people that bring their experience to me, that I learn from, people that I can touch and connect with, all over, from all over the place. And a lot of you watching this video, you know that we met along the way. And I love that. I love having that continuity and that expansion of ideas. So those are the reasons why I enjoy interim leadership. I become very, very bored staying in one place for too long. And I realize that about myself, and I know that about myself. So this is just a really good fit for me. So if you think it might be a good fit for you, there's 3 questions that I came up with that I think anyone considering traveling should ask themselves. The first one is, what are my thoughts and feelings of change? And realize that there are no right or wrong. It's how you feel about change. Is change something you embrace? Does change motivate you? Does change get you excited? Or does it fill you with anxiety? Is change something that you dread? If it is, then this type of work is not really suited for you. You've got to be willing to just kind of run with it and know that you need to be a change agent in most cases. The second question is, how do you develop relationships? And this one is kind of, are you the type of person who can find instant connections with people? Do you meet someone and are able, no matter where you are, form a communication link? be able to, even if you don't have anything at all in common, you're still able to have a meaningful conversations and some sort of a link with each other? Or are you the type of person who is slow, a little slower, a little more conservative? You want to get to know someone, you want to take your time, you don't really want to jump in and develop a relationship. If you are the later, then you will be challenged as an interim because you only have a short amount of time to jump in there and form relationships with people. The last question is a little more of a practical question. Are you able to go 1, 3, 6 months without working? Do you have that type of stability in your life? Do you have that kind of a cushion? Now, certainly you can be in a traveling interim and try to work as much as you can. I know some of my colleagues and coworkers will hook up with several different agencies in order that they can just barely have a week in between assignments because they have got to keep working. That's a rough way to do it. I respect and admire people who can do that. On average, though, I had a vice president tell me once, a long time ago, vice president of an agency, he says the bulk of his workers do anything from 6 to 9 months a year. So I found that true for myself, 6 to 9 months a year is what I work. If you can handle that financially, then you don't have that anxiety and that worry of always needing to have a job. Also explore, there's different agencies out there who will treat you as an employee, and you can have benefits and you can have retirement. And then there's other agencies that consider you a subcontractor and you have to do all of those things for yourself. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. So you answer those questions and you get yourself excited, and the thought of traveling around and the thought of doing something different excites you, and this is something you'd like, then let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that looks like. And as I said, I'm going to give you some practical tips and then we can talk about general advice. One thing, if you make this choice, you need to decide, are you open and willing to go anywhere in the country, including Alaska and Hawaii? If you are open and willing to go anywhere, then you have far more job opportunities and more likely that you will work consistently. But it's okay if you only want to work in a region or one side of the country or the other side of the country, north or south. That's doable. That's very doable. And there are job assignments everywhere. So you can limit yourself to a region, but you need to make that clear up front to whatever agency you work for. Make that clear up front so that they can focus their attention and not send you job opportunities in Washington State when you want to stay in the Mid-Atlantic region. Another thing to consider is you're going to be traveling. Either you'll travel by car or you'll travel by plane, depending on how far away it is. I do a lot of traveling by plane. And so I invested the $85 for 5 years worth of TSA precheck. It is absolutely worth the money to do because we all know security, traveling and flying, especially through security, is tough. TSA precheck is worth it, hands down. I have found too that it is good to have a deployment kit, a tote that I have set aside that has the things that I want to take with me. Because whether you are living in an apartment or living in a hotel, and I've done both, and there's pros and cons to both, it's always nice to have some of your own things, your family pictures, a few little mementos here or there, your favorite style of coffee cup. Just if there's something that's important to you, then have it in a deployment kit so that you can bring it with you. Also things for your office, because even though you're a temporary employee, you do want to build a nest. You always want to have a little bit of yourself in your office. And that leads to a connection as well. That it sparks something. Someone can walk in and see a little picture that you have or a little trinket that you have sitting there, and it makes you more human because it shows who you are. Also, a candy jar. or a candy dish. Invaluable. Always have candy available and tissues because you're dealing with people. And those two things are important to have in your office. So make yourself a little deployment kit and arrive to your location a day ahead. Excuse me, I'm going to drink water. And I like to go at least a day ahead. If I'm close to, if I'm within driving distance of where I live, I like to of course, drive there and unpack. If I'm flying, I still want to, I absolutely want to be a day ahead if I'm flying, because you need that Sunday to kind of acclimate yourself to where you're at, take a run to the hospital, see how long it's going to take you to get to work and those type of things. So give yourself a little bit of time ahead. Talking about hotel versus apartment, I've had some really rough experiences in apartments, and I've heard some stories that people have had rough experiences in apartments. Apartments are nice. They hire a company that comes and furnishes them for you, and they provide towels and linens and dishes and pots and pans, various types of cookware. It's just another plus to apartments is most of the time, not always, but most of the time you have a washer and dryer right in the room. So that's always a good thing. Come home from work and you can throw clothes into the apartment washer and dryer. But sometimes it can be rough. I've been into very tiny apartments that were very difficult to live in, and some horror stories that I won't talk about here. And then I've been in, some really nice places with little balconies where I've got to sit and watch the hummingbirds and that kind of thing. Lately, the last couple of assignments that I've been on, I have gone the hotel route, and I do like being in a hotel. A friend of mine, she always recommended the hotel because, for one, you get maid service. You usually have breakfast available if you want in the mornings, and sometimes social activities in the evenings. So another plus to hotels is that you do get your points. So if you like to travel or you have family who likes to travel and you get points at the hotel, you can redeem them for your own personal use later. So those are things that, tips that I've found. You do want to be a frequent flyer, join the frequent flyer club, so you can get all the advantages of that and get your seats upgraded and take advantage of these things, especially if you're someone who hasn't really traveled much before in the past. Now, I want to have this next portion of the video be about some general advice of being an interim and kind of talk about some of my observations. One of the things that I do myself when I start an assignment is spend the first few days, just a couple of days, observing, listening, watching the details, not really doing a whole lot of talking beyond, introducing myself and that kind of thing. But you really want to see, are you stepping into a toxic environment? And I mean a toxic hospital, or is it just the unit that's having problems? Or is it just that there's been some miscommunication and a lot of leadership changes and people are feeling uneasy and unsteady? I will tell you, and I have said this before, and some of you who have talked to me about interim leadership knows, you're not walking into a well-run environment. You are not going to have an assignment with a hospital that has strong processes in place, that have leadership development for their team, that have succession planning. You're not going to go into these types of health systems because they don't typically hire interim leadership. They rarely will hire traveling nurses, only if they need to, bedside nurses and bedside staff. But they're not going to bring in any type of leadership interim from the outside if they have good, solid leadership and processes in place. So you're going to walk in to a facility that is struggling at some level. So it's up to you to determine what level they're struggling. You're going to hear a little bit in your initial interview, your phone interview with the client. You're going to hear some of their struggles, but that's not going to be all of their struggles. And what the director or the CNO sees as issues and problems within the unit don't always mesh with what you find when you are on the unit. So be prepared and be open-minded. You will go in with a roadmap, but know that you will deviate from that roadmap almost always, almost certainly. There's a few things that are as different as people like to think they are. There's a few things that are consistent. Healthcare is a roadway, and I've said this before as well. Healthcare is a roadway. It's just where you are on the road. Some health systems are way ahead, trucking along, and while others come in midway, and some are kind of in the back. And it's all where they want to put the money. Where are they technology-wise? Where's their electronic health record? Where are they in recruitment efforts? Do they use the latest software, or are they still kind of back in the good old boy, let's pick up the phone and just make a call and make things happen type of a system? So those are all things that you're going to glean in your first few days. You're going to start picking this up and seeing this. Focus on why you're there. Focus on the unit you've been assigned to or the project that you've been assigned to. Don't, especially early on when you're in interim, it's easy to get caught up in a lot of the political drama of the place. You're not there for that. You're not there to advance yourself. You're not there to become part of that health system. You're there to provide support for the project or the unit that you've been hired to. You are there to meet the short-term goals that have been put in place. So that's what you need to kind of focus on, and let the rest of it float around you a bit. Be transparent with staff. Tell them, and be transparent with everybody you meet, actually. When you're introduced to someone and someone says, well, they're the new manager, make sure that they're aware that you are the interim manager, that you are not there on a permanent basis. Because if you allow people to think that you're permanent, then it's going to cause problems in the end when it's time for you to leave. And it doesn't do the health system any good, because the outside people are going to see that as, wow, that manager didn't last long at all. What's going on? What's the problem there? Staff will also need to hear that. Again, reinforce that you're not there to stay, that you're here now. I'm dedicated to you 100% while I'm here, and we're going to try to make things better and do what needs to be done, but I'm not here to stay. And because they will ask you to stay, because you are a stabilizing force. And if you kind of give the impression that you're going to, you're going to let everyone down in the long run. So be very transparent at the beginning. Another thing I do in early days is I hold a staff meeting and I let them know that I want to meet one-on-one and I want to talk to them. I am a new pair of eyes. I am a clean slate. I have no baggage, no history. I have nothing to build on. When a staff member comes and sits in front of me, I don't know anything about their past. So I can hear them with fresh ears and listen to what's going on. And I think it's during these one-on-ones with staff, these 15 minutes, that you just want to touch base and ask them what the problem that they see, kind of ask them to tell you how they feel about life in general, that you will glean more about what is broken in this health system. You will find out about broken processes, about how many phone calls it takes to get a lab drawn, how many hours of a delay is caused by waiting on an x-ray or excuse me, or an echo or CT scan, those kind of things. You start to learn some of the processes that are broken. And then you begin to learn about the communication. Most of the time, it's communication. They're not hearing from the executive team. They feel like they're abandoned. They feel that nobody cares about them. They haven't had a stable leader in several months. They haven't had a stable leader in several years. They feel their voices aren't heard. They are not an empowered group of people. So these are things that start to unravel, and I am not going to share anyone's secrets or any stories about different health systems, but I will tell you that sometimes there's been really big revelations that have brought to me and things that need attention right away. And sometimes it's just, okay, this is processes that we need to work on or things we need to hone in and clear up. Everything ties together. Your patient satisfaction scores, your employee satisfaction scores, your quality numbers on the floor, the number of falls you have, they all tie together. And yes, rounding and being visible, being present and listening, those are all things that are going to help move that mark and move people to a better place. Role modeling the behaviors that you want to see, having meaningful conversations with physicians to find out why there may be a breakdown with the physicians and the nurses, what's going on. Sometimes, and it's been my experience in a few places, that I see things that need to be corrected immediately. And because they pose a regulatory risk or, an ethical risk for the hospital, use your experience, use your knowledge and your know-how to bring these things up and speak up. Don't allow a bad practice to happen. Don't allow a high-risk practice to continue to happen. You've got to speak up. You've got to ask the questions. Why are we doing this? What has happened? Give me the history behind it. We've got to correct this and make it better. If that's the one thing that you leave an assignment doing, then that's huge. You're not gonna, everything isn't going to be a win. You're not looking for everything to be a win, but if you can make that one big thing correct or bring awareness to the fact that the practice that's been followed is no longer best practice. And this is another avenue that you can use to empower the nurses, to encourage them to do research, to participate in practice councils, to dig a little deeper to see why we're doing the things that we do. And don't just rely on tradition and don't just say this is how it's always been done. So these are just a few of my tips and some of my advice. I'm already getting over 20 minutes on this video, so I'm not going to make it last any longer. Please, I want to hear back from you. I really do. I say this every video. I want to hear back from you. I want to hear if there's certain aspects you would like me to expand upon, if there's certain things that I should talk more in depth about or that you would like to talk more in depth about. Please let me know. And also, if there's the possibility of one day doing a live stream so that you can ask me questions and I will answer in real time, we can look to do that as well. But I want to hear from you because I want this to be meaningful. I sit here and talk, and I talk all day if I could, but it has to have meaning, and it has to be something that you are involved in and interested in, so that I can keep doing this for you. Anyway, have a lovely day, and until next time, bye-bye.